Warning, this video will have visual spoilers for areas across the game, so if you haven't for some reason played Hollow Knight yet, please do so before watching. Or don't, see if I care.
Hollow Knight Silksong is the
So Silksong released after 7 years of constant pain and endless hype and mindless Nintendo Direct expectations. But where am I in this picture, you may ask? Yeah, it's dumb to assume that the RPG enthusiast would be much of a Metroidvania guy, but to be honest, I've always been interested in the genre. I mean, one of the first games I've ever played was Castlevania Symphony of the Night, and when I was 13, I got my hand on the epic game Guacamelee, which I definitely do recommend, please play it. And months ago, I tried Metroid Prime Remastered. But what do these games have in common? If your answer was Metroidvania, then you'd be wrong, because what they actually share is that I've never finished any of them. I've never even progressed past the first area. Although I love the vibe, I've never been a fan of getting lost in a video game. I get lost, I quit, or check guides, or quit. And with minimal abilities in the beginning, it only gets more overwhelming for me. But that's not the game's fault, right? Well, I've known Hollow Knight for ages. I tried playing it out of hype when I was 13, and I got so lost I ended up quitting after 2 hours. Same thing happened the second time when I approached the game 2 years later. I was so confused, dude. I walk a little bit in a place I'm lost in, and boom, a new place to get lost in. So yes, the game always gave me a hard time, but recently with Silksong's release date finally announced, I had to lock in and finish the game that everyone claims to be one of the best games ever made. Third time's the charm, right? So I got in, got lost a bit, but eventually found my way in. Then I simply let myself get immersed in the experience. 31 hours later, I got to see the credits of my first Metroidvania, and I was like, oh my god. Kinda get it? And here we are. So hi, I'm Hazel and I'm back with another video on my very random review pattern. When I finished Hollow Knight, I knew I had so much to talk about, and while it's not just me rambling, this is the best video game ever made for like 30 minutes straight, I still think it'd be worth your time. So if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe and share your opinions on my opinions or whatever, I don't know, man. And also follow me on Twitter or donate to my coffee, all the links are in the description below. Now onto the video! Welp, time to do one of these again. So what is Hollow Knight for anyone who is living under a rock? It's a Metroidvania made by Team Cherry, a group of 4 people who convinced me Australia does in fact exist. If you want a more detailed retrospective, I recommend checking out this video made by that guy Glenn. It's great, it's informative, go watch it. Or stick here for a summary. It all started with the Ludum Dare Game Jam in 2013, which for those who don't know, it's a game dev challenge under limited time where many developers compete to make a game that revolves around a single theme. That year's theme was 10 Seconds, which then inspired the 2 friends Ari Gibson and William Pellin to make the game Hungry Knight. A simple game where you have 10 seconds to live unless you beat an enemy giving you a cherry to live for 10 more seconds. The game didn't win and it got 1 star out of 5 in Newgrounds back then, but it was the start of something great.
Maybe.
After that, they joined another game jam that had the theme Beneath the Surface as a basis, but they missed the deadline. However, the concept gave them the idea of making a full game where you discover an old fallen kingdom in an underground setting with insect-looking characters. Many designs from the original Hungry Knight game made a comeback too, especially the knight as the main character. The game was inspired by games that the team loved as kids, especially the movement being inspired by Mega Man X to give the player a great sense of control. In other games like Dark Souls, Metroid and Zelda 2, considering that their love for that game was what united the team to begin with. Development continued with Gibson doing all the art for the game, being hand-drawn and directly scanned into computers, and the lore that kept expanding the more areas and characters were added in. But their main focus was maintaining a great sense of exploration and complexity throughout the game without making it tedious or player unfriendly, with the greatest design challenge being the creation of a mapping system that kept a balance between making it so you're not going in circles like a moron, while also not ruining the sense of discovery that they strive to achieve. In 2014, Hollow Knight was revealed on a Kickstarter that ended up surpassing its initial goal, giving the team more confidence in what they wanted to make. From hiring 2 new members, David Kazi, the technical director, and Christopher Larkin, who was responsible for all the music tracks in the game, and expanding their vision by changing the engine from Stencil, an engine used to make small-scale games, to to Unity, which helped polish the overall experience. That also delayed the original September 2015 release date into a 2017 one, and here we are. The game released on February 24th, 2017, with the following consoles edition a year after. And well, it was kind of, who am I trying to lie to? It was a massive cultural phenomenon in the indie industry. It was universally acclaimed, everyone loved this piece of shit, even referred to as one of the greatest games ever made. The glazing was just insane, and as of today, it sold more than 15 million copies. I can only imagine how crazy it was for the team, who literally only wished for the game to sell enough so they could start making a new one. Well, fast forward to this day, and here I am, 7 years late to this, giving you my personal thoughts after playing the game for about 30 hours. Did I like it or did I love it? Let's find out in the next episode of Dragon. I figured it's better to talk about my thoughts on the story of Hollow Knight before anything, considering it gets the least focus overall. So Hollow Knight's writing is like Zelda Breath of the Wild, except without the people yelling about what happened 10 years ago every 5 minutes. You play as the knight, this, person we know nothing about in a place we know nothing about. The more time you spend exploring the place, you discover the remnants of a once great, now fallen kingdom. There's still some survivors, kinda, but that's mostly the very basis of the story. You learn more about the kingdom and the culture in it through optional NPC dialogue, background details, or even boss names. There's bits of lore everywhere, and the world feels so alive despite it being so lonely most of the time. Every interaction matters, and the game rewards you with lore for exploring more of it. Across the story, things change, and enemy behavior does too. It gives a sense of progressing, and it doesn't help but make me wonder what's going on. I love the characters though. Every single one has a purpose that feels real, except for the grub father, who might as well rival Pokemon parents as the most neglectful parent in history, but that's just me. There's some NPCs that legit made me cry, something the main story itself didn't, and that's when I feel the need to criticize the writing. Now look, this may be just a me issue. I'm not used to how storytelling in Metroidvanias is, but relying fully on very specific optional dialogues, or those statues with the big words that screw my head off to tell the story with very little to nothing straight up explained to you, is exhausting. I went with the hopes of the game hiding its biggest bits of lore behind its closing act, and to be fair, it kinda does, but like, I have zero context for everything happening. Who are these guys? What's my purpose? Am I brain dead? Where's my beer? It took me until I finished the game to watch a few lore videos on it, and that's when I stood there and was like, huh? I didn't even have the slightest idea of this. And I had like 81% completion rate. You can't just make a massive story and scatter it around so much that it's almost impossible to piece together without being a Matbat skinwalker. It sucks the most when I'm so used to having the story being told to me in a plate of gold. Most RPGs. Instead of having to search for parts of the golden plate throughout like 50 hours of mindless optional wandering around just to get a slightly clearer idea on what's actually going on. Though I gotta hand it to Team Cherry, the world building is still great. Seeing how everything is currently functioning after the kingdom's fall keeps the world interesting and makes me ask so many questions, which technically would be a great thing. I just wish the game made the answers a bit more obvious, but I guess that'll ruin the mystery? I don't know. The game still made me feel something though. There was a moment in the final boss specifically, which I won't spoil here, but it really moved something in me, especially with the music. And oh god, the music! But we're gonna get to that later. Anyways, although I'm not too used to it, I find the storytelling in Hollow Knight very intriguing to say the least. It's very lore rich, and everywhere you go there's new things to learn, regardless of whether or not you'll understand it. I also love the characters so much. The voices are pretty silly, I forgot to mention that. And the attention to details in the environmental storytelling through backgrounds, how enemies look, and every line of dialogue is brilliant, and it makes me get why people would love it this much, even if it didn't strike the same way for me. But that's alright, cause after all we all know where the biggest focus went anyways, right? Finally, the part that surely everyone were waiting for. I love the gameplay in Hollow Knight so much, but I do have a few complaints. Let me explain. So at first, I was really scared of playing this game again solely because of its opening hours. I was enjoying the first hour thinking, oh, maybe I'm not gonna get lost this time. Then I got the map, opened it and said, where the f am I? But I progressed a bit, got to a whole new place, and oh great, I need a new map now. It just gets more confusing from then. Well, after going back and running in circles like a goddamn moron, that's when I realized that there's a shop back in the beginning area that sells me a charm that can help me see where the heck am I. And also a pen that makes it possible to update your map, cause God forbid the map isn't fully drawn from the beginning. That just made things so much easier, but like, why are basic accessibility options locked behind obtainable abilities? I'm pretty sure there's no one out there who wouldn't rather be able to see themselves on the map without a stupid charm that you have to pay for. There's got to be a better way to do this. But that's not that big of a deal, cause, when I first saw this in the first hour, I was like, oh, I can probably pogo off this, unaware that there's even a wall jump ability acquired later on. So I tried and failed, tried again, almost got there, but then I failed, but I did it eventually. I thought it was just a silly platforming challenge, but that's when I found the first boss. Yes, that was my very first encounter, cause God forbid the game tells you where you should actually go. And so I of course died, a little more than a few times actually. And the worst part is that I had to go every single time all the way from a miles away checkpoint, do the stupid spikes thing again and fight it. All that without losing the health necessary to, well, not die. It took me about an hour and a few suicidal thoughts and maybe rage, but look, I eventually did it. I was proud of that. Then I got told that all that bullshit I just went through was optional mid-game content. You can imagine how that felt. Tutorial area, everyone. But that's okay, maybe it was just preparing me for more difficult boss fights, right? Well, that's when I encountered the real first boss fight, and that was a bit too easy. Yeah, this game has a balancing issue at the start at least. Doing what I was supposed to do, aka exploring the game, just gave me an unwarranted ass beat. But thankfully, things change the more you get used to it. Not the ass beat, by the way. The movement in this game is amazing. If I could marry a game movement, it would be this one, cause God, I love how difficult it can be sometimes. The precise platforming with the full control you're given as the player is so fun. It makes it so I can never blame the game if I screwed up or fell down. Well, at least mostly. It's also insane how the game manages to only get better with every hour you put into it. Every new ability, every charm, which we'll get to later, and every item or upgrade has a certain use. Well, mostly. What the f are these things again? Okay, but for real, the feeling of upgrading every time makes the experience so satisfying. Being able to discover new places, whether optional or mandatory with your new abilities, is wonderful, and it only made exploration increasingly better. The wall jump specifically is probably one of the best I've seen in any platformer, especially with how precise it is when more difficult challenges come. And the best part about it is that it's all rewards for exploration. I'm pretty sure you can finish the game without even getting the double jump, but it's still there. The game isn't showing you where it is, you just immerse yourself in the world and eventually find everything you need. And dear God, there's a lot to find. The game is never boring. I found myself pouring hours across a whole week into it without ever feeling slightly underwhelmed. There's always something new, whether boss fights, quests, or whole ass places that are hidden under some dumb rock. Even now, I would definitely put more time trying to get that 112% completion, or as well a whole new playthrough after already getting the hang of this game. So yes, my only big complaint here is that I genuinely wish the game made things a little bit clearer. There's a lot of content in the game that's a little bit too well hidden, and I can't lie, I do dislike that. I found myself searching YouTube for simple things that could have been easily indicated in the game. I just don't find that very amusing. If it's just side quests, I understand, but I'm talking full on content like boss fights or even areas. Maybe a charm charm that helps uncovering secrets on the map would help. I can see that working. Speaking of which, let's talk about the charms in combat finally. This game offers a massive variety of boss fights, each with their own movesets and themes. They do vary in difficulty, but I could never call them easy. I know that people compare them to Dark Souls, but as someone who never played a Souls game before, all I thought about instead was Cuphead. Specifically in how, despite how simple their moveset is, they're mostly hard because of how overwhelming they can get sometimes, which isn't a bad thing. Like for example, there's this attack where this guy spits whatever this is on the ground, sometimes a huge amount even. If you manage to successfully dodge that, it starts jumping on you, which you have to dodge. Now the problem is, the orange stuff is still on the ground, so you have to be careful from the fast jump and the ground you're in. I like when games do that, because having a simple moveset makes it easy to process the boss fight, but hard to win. So it never feels unfair. Well, unless you're me. Fuck! For real though, shout out to the failed champion and the true master Grimm. I f***ing love this dude. They were the most fun bosses to me personally. Charms still add to the fun here. They're everywhere across the game, whether bought or just found laying on the ground. They range from making you strong as hell, giving you extra health, extra defense, or the wonderful heroic order that gives Taco Bell a run for their money. They're probably my favorite aspect of this game though. They add a lot of strategic thinking to how you'll handle every boss fight in the game. And it works best cause you can't use the same charms throughout the whole game. Every enemy has a charm that works best against them. For example, there's this very useful charm that gives you 3 bugs that help fighting enemies with you. This works for regular enemies that I couldn't be less bothered with, but during a boss fight they can screw you up so bad. You see, after hitting a boss a few times, they get stunned for a bit. That gives you the time to heal and prepare yourself for the second phase. But they stop being stunned if you hit them immediately. Well, these bugs do exactly that, not giving you a single chance to breathe in favor of a small amount of damage. There's a lot other examples, and I think the game strikes a fantastic balance between charms. They're all useful on their own, and they encourage experimenting with game styles further. It's easily the best part of the game, and they can make the fun infinite. Visually, the game is a beautiful piece of art. The hand-drawn backgrounds manage to tell a story all by themselves. Everything from the details on the areas to the art style that I would also marry if I could, hashtag polyamory rules. But for real, the animation, character design and lighting all reflect a unique identity that I can never get enough of. There's an insane amount of attention to even the smallest details, and it makes every area memorable. All of them. Also, I kept noticing the motion blur that keeps occurring with every movement in the game. I don't have an issue with it per se, but I always thought it's a bit silly, so I wanted to point it out. Overall, the game succeeds at what it tries to do. It manages to keep my attention through its exploration aspect and makes me excited for every new encounter. The platforming also feels amazing with the precise yet smooth controls, and the rising difficulty that the game offers is so addicting. Though I can't lie when I say I almost rage quitted like 3 times at least throughout my entire time with it. Yes, shout out to Path of Pain for making me tear my hair apart trying to figure out what the f*** is this? Now, if you watched my other videos, you probably know how this usually goes. I talk about why the game's OST is good or bad, and show examples on it for a bit. But I won't do this here. The reason why is that because first, throughout this whole video, you've been listening to Hollow Knight OST, which was in the background while I was talking. And second, because this soundtrack is truly better experienced blind. Nothing beats getting to a new place and hearing that beautiful new melody that accompanies you throughout your journey. Or the amazing fast-paced boss battles that perfectly captures the vibe of being in a lost ancient kingdom. The orchestral and ambient style, composed fully by the extremely talented Christopher Larkin, is simply beautiful. There's not a single forgettable theme throughout the whole game. And while we're on that, I want to talk about the sound direction. The way everything has a huge weight to it, from area theme introductions to boss fight voice lines. Since all the characters are, well, bugs, they speak bug language, which I refuse to believe is simply just gibberish. Every character has unique voice lines that makes them easy to be remembered. The fat dude that yells Doma, 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 or Hornet when she tells you to get the. It's so full of personality and I'm in love with it. Same with boss patterns, cause I can bet you can finish some of these blindfolded if you are a careful listener. It's great. Please don't try this yourself. Hollow Knight is an amazing game, chat. Yes, I get Division, woohoo! Yes, I really do, though I really need a break. I'm not playing Silksong for a while. I can still hear the saws in my dream. I never imagined the idea of finishing this game, let alone making a YouTube video about it, but here we are, I guess. There's so much that this game offers, and it's crazy how consistent the overall quality of it is. Of course it's flawed, but we're talking about the work of 4 people who made this as their first game for fun. This is why I personally love indie games. You can truly feel the passion behind everything. The amount of love put into this stuff really does reflect on its quality, and that's very easy to see throughout Hollow Knight. It's a game with a rich, although gate-kept lore, and a fun gameplay that shows its qualities the more time you put into it, in a vast world that rewards you for exploring it, in a challenge that'll make you reflect on your life choices. To me, it's a 9 out of 10. Not necessarily a masterpiece, but still a wonderful experience that I couldn't recommend more. I know the first hour sucks, but please, if you haven't played Hollow Knight, do it! Now! Please? If you're still watching this video, I want to thank you so much for watching. I'm still trying my best to consistently make quality videos for y'all, so if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. We gotta pump those numbers up, guys, please, we can do it somehow, I hope. Also support me on Ko-fi or follow me on Twitter for more funny stuff, cause why the hell not? And support my very awesome artists, all the links of their accounts are in the description below. This was Hazel from the Hazelnut, and I'll see you all next time.